Everyone hears that characters are the most important part of a story, but no one tells you how to actually make them unforgettable. If your characters fall flat, it doesn't matter how good your plot or your dialogue is, the script's gonna fall apart. So, in this video, I'm gonna show you the secret that pro screenwriters use to build characters that write the story for them. I'm gonna show you the hidden ingredient that makes audiences care, and the mistake that's making your characters feel like cardboard cutouts instead of real people. Let's start with the most essential principle of all for characters. Without this, you don't have any character. You have no plot, and ultimately, you have no screenplay. If you've ever seen The Hunger Games, all Katniss Everdeen wants to do is, well, win the Hunger Games. Whether it's her trying to win over the crowd or survive in the arena, every single scene somehow ties back to her pursuing this one goal. Without this goal, there'd be no movie. In the case of your screenplay, you need to give your characters a goal. The clearer you can get on this, the easier they will become to write. With that being said, the goal is only the first step, but if you don't add this to your characters too, your audience will never care whether he achieves it or not. This is a huge thing that separates pros from amateurs, and it will completely 180 a script if you feel like it isn't interesting enough yet. What's so great about The Hunger Games is that at every waking second, Katniss's life is in danger. If she doesn't win, she dies. But it goes deeper than this. Her family might starve, and at one point, the lives of everyone in the country depend on her winning. No matter what she's doing, we're constantly on the edge of our seats, knowing that an enemy could always be right around the corner. And that's what you need to give your characters. Stakes. But how do you do this? Just think about what could go wrong for your character if he doesn't get what he wants. Like, if he wants a girlfriend, why is it so bad for him not to get one? Will he be alone the rest of his life? Will his family just not accept him? When you have this down, it justifies why they work so hard towards it, and it makes the audience actually want them to get it. But this only works if they're on the same side of your protagonist, and this could be hard, especially if what he's doing is morally gray. To show you what I mean, let's look at Breaking Bad. The amazing thing about Walter White is that he's a hardened criminal. He kills people, he manipulates everyone around him, and he's running a drug empire. Think about how amazing it is that Skyler White is one of the most hated characters in television history, because objectively, she's being perfectly rational. I mean, her husband is a dangerous criminal, and yet we get mad at her for kicking him out of the house. But why is this? It's because of how well the first episode sets up the show. Walt is broke, and he finds out he's about to die. Not only does he have a wife and son, but he has a child on the way, and all he wants to do is leave them with enough money to live a good life. Because of this, we understand why he does what he does. We can see his thought process, and that's what makes him go from suburban husband to underground drug lord. We even know the exact amount of money that he wants. $737,000, by the way, if you've never seen the show and you're uncultured. And by this point, we're telling ourselves, yeah, I'd probably do this too. And that's the key right there. You have to show how your character justifies everything he does, and that no matter what it is, no matter how horrible it seems, he completely believes that he's in the right.
You have to write that character like they're making their case to God why they should be allowed into heaven.
But that's only the first step, because it's one thing to make your audience agree with your character, but to really get them invested, you have to make them care. But how do you do this? The secret to this is also in the introduction, and here's why. In Breaking Bad, when we first meet Walt, he's pathetic. His students don't respect him. His brother-in-law is constantly putting him down. And to top it all off, he gets lung cancer. Right away, we feel pretty sorry for the guy. If we were just thrown right into the middle of him cooking meth and betraying his own family, we'd probably feel a little bit differently about him. But because we understand who he is at his most vulnerable, everything he does afterwards is through the lens of someone we care about and understand. These moments are what make us bond with our friends. We get to know them at such a deep level that we're able to look past their surface level deeds because we know why they're doing them. To do this with your own characters, just give them a weakness, one that actually makes them feel like a human. Like Indiana Jones, he's afraid of snakes, or Batman is afraid of, bats. This is how you take overused archetypes and turn them into original characters. Whatever this trait is, show a scene that portrays it as soon as you possibly can, and your audience will instantly feel attached to your character. But how do you actually decide what this flaw is? To demonstrate one way to do this, let's look at Anakin Skywalker. The prequels are all about how he is prophesized to be the chosen one, to save the Jedi and defeat the dark side of the Force. And all Anakin wants is power, even as a young boy.
I will be the most powerful Jedi ever.
Because of this, he struggles every step of the way. The further along he moves in his journey as a Jedi, the more dangerous he becomes, and in the end, he loses everything. This lust for power is what causes things to happen, like the Jedi Council not trusting him, the death of Padme, and completely succumbing to the dark side and ultimately becoming Darth Vader. He is the perfect person to go through this plot because of how unfit he is for it. He's pretty much destined for ruin, and that's what you want to do with your script. Say your story is about someone who wants to win a basketball championship, but he's very unfit physically. He's short, he's slow, and no one takes him seriously. He's the worst possible person who could have this goal. What you want to do is reverse engineer your character's goal. Whatever he's working towards, ask yourself, who's the worst possible person who could want this? But even with a clear goal and internal flaw, giving your characters this crucial element can sometimes be the make or break as to whether they feel like real people. When you do this right, it adds a layer of depth that brings them from words on the page to giving them genuine emotion so that people actually connect with them. This is another thing that Breaking Bad absolutely nails. For majority of the show, we know that Walt is doing this for his family, or at least he says he's doing it for his family. But even after he makes the amount of money he was aiming for, he still keeps cooking meth. If anything, he's going even harder than he was before. But if he just wanted $737,000 to support his wife and kids, why is he still going so strong when he's made millions more than that? Because he's not doing it for his family. As he sums up so perfectly in the last episode,
I did it for me.
Maybe at first Walter was doing it for his family, but as he keeps going, his real motivations come to surface. He wants power. Recognition for making such an impact, doing something he's so good at. It's not that he doesn't care about his family, but at the core of it all, it's not why he keeps doing it. And this is known as cognitive dissonance. Like, maybe your character says he doesn't care about women, and he's moved on from the dating life, but when nobody's looking, he's stalking his ex-girlfriend on Instagram, or he's spamming her phone with text messages. The way you add this to your own character is by giving them a defense mechanism. It's just some way that they automatically react to or justify things, when underneath the surface, something that is completely the opposite of what they're consciously saying is actually what's going on. So do this right now. Find a trait that your character has deep down that he's ashamed of, and therefore he hides it out in the real world. Honestly, one good thing that you can do with this is just take the flaw that you came up with earlier and just have him say the opposite of that. Like that's pretty much all you need to make your character stand out. All that's basically just their biography. So how do you use this stuff to drive him through the plot? Harry Potter is a perfect example of this. He's one of the most powerful wizards in the world, and there are always forces working against him. The obvious one is Voldemort constantly trying to kill him, but there's also the Dementors, enemy wizards, and potentially the only character in the world who's more hateable than Skylar White.
Things at Hogwarts are far worse than I feared.
Don't be nice to your characters. If you can think of any way to make their lives a living hell, do it. By any means necessary. All of these things make the plot interesting, and that's your job. You do this by putting as many obstacles in your character's way as you possibly can. But it's very important that you don't make this classic mistake. Imagine you're writing about a woman whose sister goes missing, and the police show up to her door and tell her, and she's just like, okay, and then she lets them go do the work on their own. Where's the story with this woman? Like, what's the point in us watching? You can't have reactive characters who just kind of drift along as the plot happens to them, but don't actually do anything about the problems in their life. They need to be active. This is where the characters in the plot unify and become a story. Your characters take action in response to the plot, and then whatever your character does causes the next plot event to happen. In the case of this woman, when the police come to her door, she should be yelling at them, like screaming that they're not getting the job done and just take matters into her own hands. She should probably end up looking for her sister herself. Whatever is standing in your character's way, he shouldn't just let it happen. At some point, He needs to start taking action to actually overcome it. That pretty much covers everything you need to do for individual characters. But don't forget, you're probably going to have some other characters in your film too. And when you're writing the relationships between all of them, you have to make sure that they're believable. A lot of writers don't think about this part. They'll just have characters say words to each other, but it doesn't actually feel like two people who are talking to each other. It just feels like they're artificially forcing the plot forward. So how do you avoid this? For all the movies and TV shows we've discussed so far, between The Hunger Games, Harry Potter, Breaking Bad, whatever, it's more than just the action sequences or the dialogue and even the plot. It's how well we understand the characters. If you've seen Harry Potter, you know Ron and Hermione just as well as you know Harry. In Star Wars, Han and Leia feel just as real as Luke, and that's how you want the characters in your screenplay to feel. So, how do you make sure this is the case? All the work we just did between the internal flaw, the goals, the defense mechanisms, give them to characters that are even there for one scene. Because at the end of the day, in real life, everybody feels like they're the main character. And that's how all your characters should feel. Not that they actually are the main character. I mean, that would get a little confusing. But that they all behave like they're the main character. Treat all of your characters like they're your main character. Be careful when you do this, because if you go about it wrong, they won't move the story forward the way that they should. In Harry Potter, a lot of the story comes from the way that everyone treats Harry. His aunt and uncle take him to a completely separate island just so he can't go to Hogwarts. Voldemort is constantly trying to kill the kid. Oh God, I said it again. Without all these intertwined nuances of character, nothing would ever happen. They'd just be at an ultimate standstill. The trick here is to give your characters conflicting goals, ones that contribute to the plot, because when you do that, it creates more obstacles for your characters, and it helps move the story forward. So, like, if your character's goal is to buy a specific dog, but then some rich guy comes in who wants the same exact dog, and he gives him 4 times the amount he has, now your character has something to work for, to kill the guy or something. I don't know. It's up to you. Just like you should put your character into a plot that will absolutely destroy him, you should create characters around him who will inevitably get in his way. But here's what most people forget. All the plot, action, and relationships in the world mean absolutely nothing if you can't write good dialogue. One good line of dialogue will tell you more about a character than 10 pages of biography. So if you want to see a breakdown on how to avoid all the classic dialogue mistakes so that you can write dialogue at a professional level, watch this video here.